Hello and welcome to the Granstrom Podcast Super Soul Model Series, where I help you tune and tap into your natural state of well-being. This week on the show, I'm very excited to have my guest, Rudi Weinand, who is a sound healer and who is a practitioner at the new Life Marbella clinic, helping people attune themselves to higher frequencies using the latest biofeedback and biohacking technology available in the south of Spain. Rudi, welcome to the show. I'm so pleased to have you on.
Hello, James. Thank you very much for having me here.
Just a little background. Rudi is an incredible human being, actually. And I met him only a couple of weeks ago and I heard him playing his music. Seeing as this podcast is all about health, healing, spirituality, developing positive mindsets for mind, body, and soul. When I came across Rudi and his music, it sort of really resonated in a way that made me feel really relaxed, really calm. And I've been really interested in music for a long time. It's a real passion of mine. I'm sure I've shared it on the show before that I make dance music and I also play the ukulele. But when you meet someone who actually helps people heal using sound frequencies, that is something special. So I'm really glad and excited to have this conversation. So Rudi, tell us a little bit about your story. How did you get into sound healing and all your music?
Well, thank you very much for enjoying the music that I played the other day. And that's a lovely present for me as well. Well, how did I go into sound healing? Well, I started off playing the drums in a psychedelic hardcore band in my 16, 17, 18 years old, which actually started to save my life. So I started to discover that music was a definite lifesaver and a game changer for me on a psychological and an emotional level, and also a physical level. And I also started playing the didgeridoo back then as a hobby. And over the years, I started to notice that playing the didgeridoo had a positive effect on my health. Like, for example, when I had a headache, I started playing the didge and headache went away after a while. And it happened often. So at one point, I had a girlfriend and she had very bad menstrual pains. And so I once just said, well, lay down and I play the didgeridoo on your body, see what happens.
And this was
And
after you had like the headaches. So you'd had some success with the headaches. You were thinking, well, what if I play the
myself.
didgeridoo?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So she laid down and I played the didgeridoo on her hip area and really close to the body, making it vibrate, all of it. And her pain went less and much easier to support for her. So we did that over and over again, and it always worked. So that's how I started to get interested into why and how a certain sound frequency or a vibration from a sound frequency would cause any benefit to the state of health of a physical body.
Right.
And well, from there on, the journey got deeper and deeper and more refined over the years. And so now I am basically working with tuning forks. I also still work with the didgeridoo and with music, but my therapeutic work is mainly based on the work with tuning forks and with very specific frequencies we use to induce into the body.
I mean, this is absolutely fascinating. I can see in the future, I've thought about this for years actually, that when we go to the medicine cabinet, there will be the normal Western medicine that we can find today. And I can just foresee that as the world catches up with this understanding of sound frequencies and healing frequencies, that we will also have tuning forks in our medicine cabinet. You know, this is my idea. And it always makes me think back to like a Star Trek film I watched years ago when they were using this technology and they came back to San Francisco in the present day and they were going, all your devices that you used for healing and in the hospitals are so like old. You could be doing all this kind of stuff. So it just kind of, it's so beautiful to see that there are other modalities that can help people in ways that we just don't necessarily understand yet. But what I love is that what your work is doing, and particularly the way I felt. I mean, really, healing starts with a feeling. So if you begin to feel better, then all healing sort of starts to speed up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I had this conversation with you last week, and you were talking to me about frequency. So what frequencies in music or in sound begin to help the body heal? Did you understand what you were doing with the didgeridoo? Did you? What were the
Yeah,
science behind
I
it?
think I think there are different aspects to the healing effect or the benefits that one may take from music and sound. So one is definitely just the frequency of vibration, and different frequencies will tend to generate a different resonancy and a different response in the body. That's one thing. And the other thing is obviously when you're talking about music, well, you're talking about melodies, you're talking about intervals and tensions and that evoke different feelings and evoke different psychological responses. That's another thing. That's like the scales and everything that the scales may evoke. And and then there is the human factor, which is the intention and your own energy as a musician or as a practitioner that you put into the sound. So I like to look at sound or see sound as a way of transmitter. And I can use the sound frequency to get to another person's heart, to another person's mind, to another person's spirit, or to another person's body. And if I am able to focus my own mental and emotional and physical state in a way that may benefit the other, then I can charge the sound waves with that feeling. And it's a very, very easy example. For example, you may have a certain song that makes you feel very special in a very special way. Um, but even though this is the very special song for you, there may be exactly one recording which gives you goosebumps more than any other. And there may be 10 different versions from the same artist, from the same song, but only one gives you these goosebumps. And it is because his mindset, the musician's mindset and emotional and physical presence at the moment of performing this song and doing this recording is very specific and in a specific relationship to your own vibration, and that you can relate to in a very specific manner. And that's why it's resounding with you in a different manner than the other recordings that are still the same song, but don't move you in the same way. So that's like the energetic content that we put into sound.
So that's why
When
sometimes when people go to a concert, they sometimes feel the joy of the performance, the live exchange, because the band is playing in such a way that they're exuding this sense of joy or happiness or passion, and so all the crowd is picking it up. Now, this may apply for more people who are auditory, who love that sound experience, but there's some people who are visual, who don't necessarily sound is important, but it's not one of their main sort of faculties, because most people are either visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. And when it comes to sound frequencies or music, some people aren't music buffs. So how would sound frequencies heal people that aren't into music, that aren't into
exactly. So
this
yeah.
faculty of our sensory of our senses? Yeah.
Yeah, so there's the interesting thing about the tuning forks, because on one hand, you've got a tuning fork, which is this artifact, which is like a little metal piece that you may know from tuning instruments. I show it here in the video, you can see it. And it has like two wings, and then it has one shaft where the two wings are attached to. And if you hit the tuning fork, it vibrates and it generates a very steady sinusoidal frequency, which is just a clean sound.
All right. So that was very sharp. I just felt like a vibration.
Yeah. And it's a very neutral sound. So there's no characteristic to it, like to a trumpet or a violin or so, but there is a
Yeah.
lot of, you know, characteristics and timbre to it. So it's a very, very clean sound wave, and it vibrates. And what we do with the tuning fork is that we induce the sound frequency, the vibration, through touch. So it is a little bit like, you can think of it like if it would be acupuncture, but instead of putting a needle inside the body, you put the tuning fork on the body and you transmit the vibration via touch.
Right.
And that means that you are introducing a micro massage to the inner tissue with a specific sound frequency. And over the years, we see over and over again that specific sound frequencies tend to generate a specific response on a cellular and molecular and also emotional and mental and energetic levels in the organism. So basically what it's about is that we can increase energy levels or we can decrease them. We can relax the body, we can relax and slower down all the rhythms and everything with the frequencies, with the sound frequencies through a tuning fork, or we can enhance the energy level and make the organism activate itself more. So that's more or less the basic idea to it. And the nice thing about this is that you feel the sound frequency, and it is like this little, like tickly feeling inside the body, and it's like this very nice soft vibration inside the body. And so you don't need to be a person that likes to observe the world more through its ears than through the eyes or whatever sense, because it's just by touching the body with the tuning fork and getting the vibration into the body, instantly the mind goes down to the body, and your attention is in the physical realm of your body, which is really interesting because normally we're always up in our mind, or we tend to be a lot in our mind. So the tuning fork helps a lot to bring down the mind into the body, into the real, like, physical perception of my sensations, my emotions, and also my thoughts and images in the mind. And so we do very specific treatments. For example, in the New Life Rehab Center in Marbella, which is a very exclusive luxury rehab center for substance abuse and also for burnouts. And most of the clients, they have got a very big issue with their sleep patterns. So they have very bad time sleeping. They don't sleep well, and they suffer from insomnia. So the main reason we do the sound treatments there is always to try to normalize the sleep patterns and to do like a sleep therapy. And we have got very, very good responses from the people. And for example, to give you a perfect example, a person that is a businessman and is very, very stressed all the time and is always hooked on the telephone. And even if he's having lunch or a massage or whatever, he's always hooked on the telephone, always going. His mind is always going. And somebody like that, after 2 or 3 sessions, can be laying down for 1 hour straight, eyes closed, and getting into real deep states of relaxation and sleeping. And then just, sometimes they really fall asleep and just keep on sleeping. It's just the music, it's just the sound frequency.
Yeah, so what it strikes me is that if someone's got a very overactive mind, they find it very difficult to relax. And a lot of people that have a very overactive mind obviously spend a lot of time in their head, as you were saying, so they find it very difficult to get into the body because they've practiced more being in their mind and trying to stimulate the mind, because the mind, or the monkey mind, as they say in meditation, it is overactive and it just needs to consume and be given energy so it feeds. So as soon as you learn how to relax, obviously through the tuning forks and the frequency, the body begins to stabilize, I suspect, and calm down. I know that's my experience when I make music.
Exactly.
And whether I make dance music, it makes me feel more passion and more up. But when I play the ukulele, it sort of chills me out a lot more. So I've always got some sort of music playing in the background. And I've realized when I look back to when I was a kid, I always had some sort of soundtrack for this part of my life or this part of my life.
Yeah.
And it made me have quick associations and good feelings. So music can either make you have a good association or a bad association and create these triggering responses. But what I'm interested to know, Rudi, is how did you come across what certain frequencies started to help people and started to heal people? You're saying you're playing the didgeridoo to your then girlfriend and you were helping yourself playing the didgeridoo to release those headaches that you had. How could someone use a tuning fork or music to calm themselves down? And what specific frequencies, this is the real point of the question, what frequency is required to bring your body and mind and your soul or spirit back into a sense of equilibrium?
Yes. So on one side, you have got like music and you have got preferences, and it's very individual. And for example, sometimes I myself, I need a like hard rock song in a high volume or a dance song in high volume for 15 minutes straight and just dance my ass off, sorry, in order to be able to calm down. And that's one thing, and that's very individual, and everybody, we all have our own way of relating to music and stuff. But when we're talking about tuning forks and specific frequencies, what we are using and what we do is based on the calculations of a man who was a musicologist and mathematician. His name is Hans Cousteau. He's from Switzerland originally. He still lives, quite old already, but he still lives. He's still active. And what he did is that he started to calculate the corresponding frequencies to certain planetary movements. And that sounds a little weird, but it's like transposing, like, for example, you've got the rotation of the Earth. It's the rotational movement of the Earth around its own axis. And if you measure that respect the sun, it takes 24 hours to repeat itself over and over again. So we've got a cycle that is given by nature, let's say, by our microcosmic nature, which is the planetary movement and the time it takes for the Earth to rotate on its own axis. And our organisms, our physical body, is made in a way and a manner to be able to work and function well when it is in this circadian rhythm, as they call it. So a lot of our hormones and everything and all the inner rhythms of our body are tuned on basis of the 24-hour cycle, for example.
So our bodies are like the microcosm of the planet itself. I mean, there's this wonderful correlation. So what you're doing is you're tuning into the macrocosm to use the same scientific cycle to help tune the body at a micro level from the planet.
Exactly. So there are very, very interesting correlations that you see when you compare the numbers. So you can take the 24 hours and convert them mathematically into a sound frequency and transpose it into the hearing range of the human ear. I won't get into how we do that. It's a little bit of mathematics. It's just 1 to 2. It's a very simple math. But so now you can represent, as you represent, for example, a territory of the United States of America in a map that's 30 by 30 centimeters. And you can represent it in all of its dimensions and correlations correctly, but smaller, so you can see it in one piece. And that's what we do. We take the 24 hours cycle, and it's a frequency that is so low that obviously we cannot hear it. So in steps of octaves, we make it faster in order to be able to hear it. And then we can represent, for example, 194.18 hertz is the 24th octave of the rotation of the Earth. So now I've got a frequency that has a direct harmonic relationship with how the Earth moves around its own axis.
And can you hear that frequency on the 24th octave of that frequency?
Yeah, definitely. For example, I've got it here, this tuning fork, and okay. When we use the sound frequency that has a harmonic relationship to how the planet moves, in this case, the rotation, and I introduce this sound frequency into the physical body, into an organism of a human being in that case, well, then the human body says, oh, I know that. I can relate to that because it's natural to the human body, and it's represented also in its own inner manner of functioning, of maintaining the electrical tension in the nervous system and how all the cells and everything in the body work. So the frequency, the sound frequency, is like a potential of the Earth's movement around its own axis. And when I introduce the sound frequency into the body reacts to it and resounds with it. It's like when you've got two frequencies or two bodies that are tuned to the same frequency and you just strike one, the other gets stimulated as well. I don't know if you have seen
this. It's called the law of resonance. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Exactly.
So you hit one tuning fork at one frequency, and if you've got two in the same, the other one will start ringing as well. That's in another kind of way. It's like two people who are happy will rendezvous with each other. Two people who are in a bad mood and are having a bad day will rendezvous with each other. Resonance.
Exactly.
So the same with the sound frequency. Yeah.
Exactly. And what we use, basically, we use the frequencies of the rotation of the Earth, which is our 24 hours, day and night cycle.
So what's the frequency of the Earth?
It's 194.18 hertz, which would be a little lower than a normal G.
Okay, so
And then we
194.8, so it's a bit lower than a G sound, right? Okay.
exactly. And then we use a lot the frequency of the orbit of the Earth, our
Yeah.
traveling around the sun, our orbit travel, which is 136.10 hertz,
Okay.
which is a little lower than a C
Is that
sharp.
and you've created music, haven't you, with these frequencies?
Yeah, definitely. One thing is that you can use these frequencies to make a tuning fork and use the tuning fork in a therapeutic manner,
Yeah.
or you can use the same frequencies and compose and make music based on these frequencies. Definitely.
You created this 3-minute meditation at 136.1 hertz, which is the
Right.
and I've been listening to that for the last few days. So I'm going to put all the links of Rudi's music that he's actually used these frequencies. And I'm telling you, there's something going on in these recordings, and you can tell because it's incredibly relaxing. Now, I've been meditating for 20 years, for 2 decades, every single day. So for me, it's probably quite easy to drop into a relaxed mode because I've been practicing it for so long. But if you haven't been meditating and you still want to benefit from these frequencies, listening to Rudi's music, particularly this 3-minute one I've been listening to, and the didgeridoo, which is a 10-minute one as well. But anyway, the links will be in the show notes. Go and check them out. Go and listen to them because it does something to your body and your mind. It's incredibly soothing and it drops you into a deep state. So I'm fascinated by the science, but I'm also fascinated by the experience you get.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Just the other day, I saw a young woman, 15 years old, and she doesn't have any experience in meditating or whatsoever. She's like any teenager, she likes cell phones and her friends and this and that. And, she's just into being a modern young woman and not very much into meditation. And the thing is that we did a session with the tuning forks and I also work with headphones and with these kinds of frequencies in a musical manner to be able also to work through the mind directly and through the psyche. And after half an hour, she was starting to snore away. She just slept away. She just drifted away completely. And afterwards, I told her, what, you were sleeping very profoundly. And she said, no, no way. I was conscious all the time. So what happens is that people that don't have any experience in meditation, for example, the sound and the music itself and the sound frequencies, they can induce deep states of meditation in no time without even making an effort. Just sitting down and focusing the attention a little bit on listening to what you're hearing, and that's it. You
Yeah.
don't need, you don't need to know any technique or any specific sit down in whatever position. I always say to people, you should be comfortable in order to be able to switch off. So first of all, get comfortable and then relax and just listen and see what happens. And it just happens because the frequencies, they as they have this harmonic relationship to nature, and nature in the end is our own nature. Because it's so important for me to recognize that the physical body that I have is my home base and my basis for all of the human experience that I may have. So it doesn't matter what my beliefs are. It doesn't matter if I'm rich or poor or intelligent or whatever. All the characteristics of my human life are secondary, and they are all based on the experience that I can have through my physical body. And my physical body is made in a manner by nature, is conceived in a manner to be healthy on a planet that has its own characteristics. And the planet we're living on is planet Earth, and we have got our 24-hour day and night cycle. We have got our 365 and a little bit days year cycle. And also they found out that our hormone levels, they rise and fall throughout the year, over the month, and over the different stages of the
This
year.
is just cyclical. This is just cyclical, innate understanding that we are part of nature and we flow with nature, which is why in winter we want to hibernate more and go in ourselves. It's not really a time for high activity, but as
Yeah.
soon as spring comes and summer comes, it's a great time for more activity and more life.
And also we've got also the moon cycles, and it's not
Yeah.
only the sea and the oceans and the tides and menstrual cycles in women and stuff. Also in men, hormonal hormones and hormone levels change with the moon phases.
Right.
So we are not like, oh, we are influenced by nature. No, we are made in order to be able to have a healthy body, being part of how nature is working, and is, it's just given. It's not
And
something somebody makes up. So that's really important for me to understand, when we are on a spiritual journey, that our physical body is the basis of our experience. If I don't have the physical body I don't have any experience at all as a human being, you
sure.
know.
And if you
So I
don't take care,
should,
and if you're not
yeah,
taking care of your body, you don't really get to experience the optimal levels of life, happiness and those higher feeling emotions.
correct.
So yeah, it's important. It just reminds me of this old sort of spiritual and natural law phenomenon where they say as above, so below. But scientifically, what you're saying is if the planet has this frequency, then if you adopt the same frequency or sound frequency on your body, then you're going to be in harmony. So it's
Yeah,
all about harmonics, isn't it, really? So we're
very
always trying to
quickly.
find harmony and
Yeah,
balance with everything. So
yeah.
this
I
makes so much logical sense, both to the spiritual nature as above, so below, but also
yeah.
as the microcosm and the macrocosm.
I would love to give a very quick example. Let's see if I can
Sure.
get that clear. Because what's above, so below. That sounded always very nice to me and stuff. But when I looked into the numbers and into the real relations that exist, it just blows my mind over and over again. So, for example, we've got in our nervous system a basic electrical charge of about minus 70 millivolts in each nerve cell. That's like the basis of our electric charge in the nervous
How
system.
many nerve cells do we have?
Oh, I don't know, billions and billions. I've got no
Right.
idea.
Okay.
Um, but at rest, it's about minus 70 millivolts. And each cell has a membrane, and it has an inner space and an outer space. And the membrane exchanges sodium and potassium, puts potassium inside the cell and takes sodium outside the cell, and it's ions that are charged electrically. So they need to do this interchange constantly in order to maintain the electrical tension. So how does the nervous system do that? At which rhythm or at which pace does the nervous system do this exchange between the potassium and sodium ions? So each cell introduces 136 potassium ions inside to the cell each second, and it expels around 204 sodium ions to the outer side of the cell. So first of all, the relationship between what they put in and what gets out is exactly the fifth. It's a perfect fifth. In music, that's a resting point, always. In India, the tambura, for example, it's always tuned to the lower octave, the fifth, and the upper octave. And it can sound always, it's always nice. It's just a resting point. So that's interesting. And not only that, but if I calculate the 32nd octave of the orbital movement of the Earth around the Sun of our year, 365 point whatever days, the 32nd octave vibrates exactly at 136.10 hertz. So that's vibrating 136 times per second. So our nervous system, when at rest, introduces 136 potassium ions inside the cell every second. So that's the same frequency. So our nervous system at rest maintains the electrical tension that it needs to be healthy, and in order to be ready to send a nervous signal, it vibrates at 136 repetitions per second. And if I use the sound frequency and I put it on the body and I introduce this vibration into the body, well, the nervous system says, oh, wow, that's my resting state. I know that frequency. I like it here. And this is good.
So I call this my natural high. This is
Yeah,
what I call this my natural high. And I haven't been drinking or haven't touched any drugs in like 20 years because I found this frequency that you're talking about. But what I really like, as I have to sort of round off this amazing conversation, because your specifics and understanding of the sound frequencies and everything really is just incredible, is that just that 3 minute of your flute music at that frequency of 136.10 hertz, literally, I've been knocked out for sleep the last few nights and I've been sleeping extremely well. Now I
Oh,
sleep well, but this is a different, it's like deeper. It feels like the dreams are more vivid. It just feels like more restful and I've got a lot of energy. Um, and I'm fascinated because I feel like this would benefit literally everybody. I just wanted to say, Rudi, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge of the sound frequencies of your music. And where can people find you and where can they get to experience more Rudi Weinand?
Yeah, I do private sessions with the tuning forks. I offer also courses to learn to use the tuning forks in a therapeutic approach for people who want to use them. You can find me on the links and everything that are shared on the
Yeah.
podcast. Find me on Instagram and internet or through the New Life Marbella Rehab Center. And I'm based in Marbella. I travel a little bit. I've got a small son, so I'm a little more sticky to where I'm at physically. But here I am.
Fantastic. Well, I have all those links available. Rudi, it was been an absolute joy speaking to you and picking up on some of your wisdom. There's so much more and there's so much depth to this sound frequency and how it's going to help people going forwards. I can really see this being a new medicine. Anyway,
Thank
Rudi,
you so
delight to
much.
speak to you. Thanks for being on the show. Rudi Weinhardt's this week's Super Soul Model. Thanks again, Rudi.